Editing this is gonna be such a... So another week, another episode of Invincible Season 2 to talk about, and as usual, there's quite a bit to unpack. If you've been on the internet at all, I'm sure you know of a very specific event that happens, but we'll get to that soon. And before we get started, I just want to say, thanks for the, overwhelming support on the last video I did on Invincible. Holy moly, y'all went crazy on that one. So, big thumbs up and gold star to you, everybody. So if you enjoy my content and the casual, chaotic vibes it brings, then be sure to check out my Discord server that I co-own with one of my streamer friends. It's a whole bunch of fun and it's a great place to hang out. And of course, be sure to check out the podcast that we started recently. Second episode's out right now for you all to enjoy over on the official channel, as well as on Spotify. Links to that are down below. And if it wasn't obvious, again, spoiler warning, if you haven't seen episode 2, go watch it and then come back and watch this video. But enough twiddling our thumbs, let's talk about this episode. So Invincible Season 2, Episode 2 opens on Mark being late to graduation because he's dealing with Doc Seismic, who's trying to destroy the Washington Monument with his, lava monster friends. After a swift beatdown and some back-and-forth political debate with Doc Seismic, Mark manages to stop the monument from being destroyed. Massive air quotes. After Mark makes it to graduation, Mark, Eve, Amber, and William all have a nice little grad party at Eve's place out in the woods. Not long after, at the Grayson house, Debbie and Mark get into a little fight about Mark's deal with Cecil. It eventually devolves into the discussion of Mark turning out like his father, but luckily Cecil calls in the middle of it and Mark gets an easy get-out-of-jail-free card. After flying off, Cecil has Mark go to Night City. I mean Midnight City, with apparent sightings of Darkwing, who last we checked was, pretty goddamn dead. After flying around the city a bit, Mark sees some criminals running away from someone cosplaying as Darkwing. According to what he tells us, he was Darkwing's assistant and can travel to the Shadowverse. Ooh, super edgy! A few exchange of blows later, Mark is lured into the Shadowverse, but he snags Darkwing before he can escape back to the real world. Mark makes a serious threat to him to let him out of there, saying,
"You have no idea what I'm capable of."
And, the discussion of Mark possibly turning out like his father and the fear of it is a tiny bit justified in this scene. Darkwing eventually gives in, and Mark knocks him out. Later on, Mark has some free time and flies Amber to lunch in Vegas, but immediately gets called back by Cecil for a mission. Man, dating a superhero must be like a massive tease. You get all these amazing perks like going to lunch across the country, but in the middle of it, gotta save people. After Omni-Man killed Aquarius in Season 1, Mark has to marry Aquarius' widow, as is Atlantean custom if the surface doesn't want war. Turns out, though, the GDA had some very outdated info on Atlantean culture, and Mark has to fight a giant sea monster instead. Great! Things go as things do, and it gets loose and goes on a killing rampage. Cecil orders Mark to escape, since this wasn't the deal, but Mark refuses, opting to save the Atlantean queen and send the monster into a trench. By disobeying orders, he got under Cecil's skin a little bit, but by saving the queen, he prevented war with Atlantis and the service world. Good job, Invincible. Claps to you, my dude. Let's rewind things back to the graduation party. Not long after the graduation party, Eve is back in Chicago helping out with reconstruction. The local workers don't take too kindly to it, but the citizens appreciate her help loads. And Eve creates this beautiful community park and a lot that the county could never be bothered to build on. After finishing that up, Eve gets a call from her mom and flies home. When she gets home, Eve's mom explains that financially things have been a little bit tight, and Eve's curious as to why they didn't call since, well, she can literally create anything. Eve's dad gets home and he's in a Burger Mart uniform, after getting fired from the furniture store as a result of Chicago's corporate office getting turned to rubble at the end of Season 1. Eve turns an apple into pure 24-karat gold and tells her mom to convince her dad to sell it before flying off. After coming back to check on her parents, Eve attempts to sympathize with her father, urging him to accept her help. Her father retorts back with a newspaper article about the park Eve made in Chicago. The whole lot collapsed in on itself because it was unstable, revealing the real reason the city never fixed it. Distraught at the thought that people almost died because of her, Eve gets out of there pronto.
It's rewind time.
After the fight with Mark, Debbie heads to the GDA to tell Cecil how pissed she is with him. She calls him out for wanting control and pretty much trying to be a control freak after what happened with Omni-Man. Donald, our precious boy, comes down the stairs with a report, and Debbie basically has the same reaction I did when I first watched episode 1. Later on, Debbie tries to sell a house, doing her normal life thing. The couple they're trying to sell to isn't too healthy in terms of their relationship. Mainly the guy being a total a-hole. Debbie mutters, "She's not your pet," under her breath, and the guy hears. Luckily, Debbie's partner resolves the situation, and she gets the rest of the day off. After getting home, Debbie goes to take a drink, and after getting frustrated at the cabinet not staying closed, she starts slamming it into the doors and goes on a total rampage before collapsing into tears. Mark gets home like Nolan used to, all beaten and bloodied, and he does his best to comfort his mom. While all this is going on, the Guardians of the Globe just can't catch a break this season. First they have the Immortal kicking their ass in training, and now Rex is getting cucked by the same place he cheated on Eve. I mean, hell, I know the guy is pretty messed up, but give him a break, he's doing his best, man. When Cecil gets back from sending Mark on his mission to Atlantis, the Lizard League pops up on the radar, and the Guardians are sent to deal with them. During the encounter, another version of Rex shows up, and Rex calls Rudy out, being like, "This better not be another one of your stupid schemes." Turns out it's some shapeshifter calling himself the Shapesmith. We learn earlier in the episode that one of the astronauts that came back from the Mars mission last season is actually a Martian who escaped his planet. Admiring Martian Man's work as one of the original Guardians, Shapesmith shows up to help the Guardians with the Lizard League. After giving them a hand, he's invited to Guardians HQ, where he tells the Guardians about his normal human origins, the audience getting his true origins in a series of flashbacks. The episode ends with the Lizard League getting butthurt about getting their butts hurt, and it rolls right into the first credit sequence. In the post-credit sequence, a cloaked figure is talking to Mark, who seems to be restrained in some sort of maximum security room. The cloaked figure turns out to be Angstrom Levy, encouraging a gender-bent version of Cecil and Donald? Man, the writers are doing the internet too many favors this season. Levy encourages them to make Invincible pay for what he's done, and he steps through a portal and the episode ends. So that was the plot of Invincible Season 2, Episode 2, and man, this one's full of memes and full of serious plot points, so let's get started talking about them. First and most obvious, I think, is talking about the Immortals' behavioral actions towards Rex in the shower room, specifically. I always sort of looked at the Immortal as this, like, honorable warrior type, but man, I guess after so many thousands of years of living, you just sort of get tired of that act and give in to your urges. But poor Rex, man. I mean, like, yeah, he cheated on Eve, and this is probably karma for that, but man's been through a lot. Like, give him a break. Give him a break. Our new Martian character, the Shapesmith, is someone I'm pretty excited to see what they do with. The whole Mars, like, subplot line has always been pretty interesting to me, seeing how it's gonna, like, affect Earth and, you know, how Invincible's gonna get involved, if he gets involved. And again, as someone who hasn't read any of the comics, I just have very vague knowledge of them, I'm really excited to see how the Shapesmith is sort of gonna integrate into society as a Martian. Will he eventually reveal what he really is, or will it be only when it's sort of down to the last possible second when he absolutely has to? Either way, I really do want to see more of the Martian and the Mars plotline, because it was pretty, like, it was pretty cool, let's be honest. Another thing I really liked about this episode was when Mark would sort of go all serious tone and make, like, genuinely terrifying threats, like toward Darkwing, for example. The overarching theme of Mark both being afraid of becoming like his father and also already acting like him is really brought out by the cover art for Season 2, where it's Mark standing in his Invincible suit, and then below him is a puddle, and there's a reflection of Omni-Man in it. That alone tells you that that's going to be one of the main points of this season, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. I mean, hell, maybe Mark will get to a point where maybe Levy or another version of Omni-Man or Mark from another dimension sort of offers him, like, hey, we can make things better, but, you know, in that sort of evil undertone way. And Mark, maybe he'll seriously consider doing it, but he's our Invincible, and he's the hero, so I'm sure he'll get beat up real good for it and then learn a lesson afterward, just like Season 1. Either way, I have full faith in Mark's ability to come out on the moral high ground, even if he almost dies for it, like last time. Getting a slice of Adam Eve's life and how her parents are sort of financially struggling, even though she could literally make them as rich as they wanted, is pretty interesting, because Eve's father is sort of like the stereotypical, like, man of the house, wants to provide for the family type thing, and, you know, he has been providing for that family for a very long time, and when Eve got her powers and had the ability to make anything, it kind of just, like, nullified his whole purpose as a human being. So even if he's stubborn and, you know, he's still trying to do the right thing because he doesn't want to feel like everything he did was just completely invalidated because his daughter had superpowers. I think the handling of the writing with Eve's plotline so far has been like really well done. She's sort of suffering the reality of superheroing. I mean, she did last season too, but it was sort of more focused on Mark's reality of superheroing. That's really hard to say, Jesus Christ. But seeing more of Eve's struggle with being a superhero and trying to use her powers for good, I'm loving it. And I hope they keep going with it. When Debbie was at the GDA and she saw Donald come down the stairs, her reaction was pretty much the same as all of ours. I mean, what is Donald? Is he a clone? Is he some sort of like, I don't know, cyborg? Like what is the deal with Donald? He's just acting like nothing happened. I mean, we know the GDA has some pretty big secrets up its sleeve, so it's not too hard to imagine that they could bring him back in a sense, but whatever he is now, like, it could be anything. I could make wild guesses all day, and I probably still wouldn't even be right because I'm an idiot. Either way, that subplot is something I'm pretty excited to see unfold. Either way, we love our Donald. He's a precious boy. And one thing to definitely note about this episode is that there's still no sign of Omni-Man anywhere. We don't even get a glimpse into where he might be. I don't think he's even discussed in this episode at all, aside from, talking about Mark turning out like his father, but I don't think his actual whereabouts and current place in the universe, for lack of better words, isn't even, like, talked about or even alluded to a little bit in this episode. I have a feeling they're going to keep Omni-Man as one of the cards that they're going to play later in the season because it's going to be, like, really important and really dramatic because that's the question everybody's asking. So holding that card until it's time to reveal it is probably the smart thing to do on the writer's part. Either way, I'm really excited to see how Omni-Man is sort of coping with everything that happened. And, if he ends up in prison like he did in the comics, then seeing him reflect on everything is going to be a really good series of scenes and plot threads. Regardless, this episode was absolutely fantastic. If I were to say what the weakest point is, I'd say it's probably the Guardians, minus the whole Immortal cooking Rex thing. That was definitely a high point, but I'd say the general weakest point would be the Guardians, like, by themselves. Just for this episode, like, it was still good. Like, I still enjoyed when they came on screen, but, like, all the other plots unfolding were, I don't know, I felt more connection to the other plots. If I were to say what the strongest point of the episode is, I'd say probably, honestly, if I were to say what the strongest point of the episode is, it would 100% be when Debbie absolutely loses her mind and just starts smashing the glass, and then Mark shows up and, no words need to be said. And I think that was the strongest scene in the episode, by far. But what are your thoughts? Do you completely agree with me? Do you partially agree with me? Or do you think I'm an idiot who doesn't know what he's talking about? I don't know. I don't care. But be sure to leave your comments down below to tell me what you think. And again, same rules. No spoilers for episode 3 since it's going to be out by the time this video is released. I will delete your comments if you spoil anything with episode 3. So please, just no spoilers. And again, be sure to check out my Discord server and my podcast in the description below. It's a whole bunch of fun, and I really think you'd enjoy checking out both of those things. And if you're big into memes, then you'll definitely love the Discord server. Some of the stuff in there is just hilarious. So thanks so much for watching, and I'd love to hit 500 subs by the end of, we're going to push for this month. We're going to push it for this month because, oh my goodness, the sub count has been skyrocketing for my usual standards lately. So keep pushing them subs. Let's hit 500 before November's out. It would really be a awesome Thanksgiving present. But that's where I'm going to round things out for now. Thank you so much for watching. I'm super excited to talk about more episodes of Invincible Season 2. And, yeah, have a good day, everyone.
Think, Mark! I